We're going to be making a lasagna today. Look at this. This is going to be my meat and cheese lasagna recipe. Folks, this one, oh, this is a good recipe. This recipe is one that has 18 different ingredients that you're going to be using. As you can see, I have a mountain of food here. This recipe also fills a big pan. The pan I'm using is a 9 by 14 by 2.5 inches. And it fills it about 1/4 of an inch from the top once it's all cooked. There is a lot of food, a fantastic recipe. I'm going to show you how to make the best lasagna that you've ever tasted in your life. This is all fresh ingredients. It's going to be a fresh pasta. We're going to make a fresh sauce, a fresh meat sauce, a fresh cheese filling, and it's going to be absolutely off the wall good. When you've tried this recipe, you've had this lasagna, I think you'll agree it's going to be one of the best lasagnas you've ever eaten. So let's get into the meat of this, as it were. I want to show you how I like to make meat and cheese lasagna. Before we get started, I would like to mention, if this is your first time to Texas Cooking Today, thank you for watching. The show you're watching this moment is one of my tutorials. The tutorials are really complex and a lot of information, and there may be more detail here than you're looking for. If it turns out that that's the case, please watch just the previous episode. That's just the recipe itself without the extraneous data for the tutorial. Okay? So if you would, thank you very much for watching in. Let's get into this. Come on. The ingredients that we're going to be using for this lasagna today are going to be right over here. We got flour, eggs, Parmesan cheese, mozzarella cheese, ricotta cheese. Up here I've got some Italian sausage. Now you don't have to use Italian sausage. You can use ground beef, you could use turkey, you could use chicken, just a ground meat. You're going to need a couple pounds of it. For the other ingredients, we've got some spinach, olive oil, wine, shredded carrot, shredded onion, basil, oregano, rosemary, garlic, some salt, and some tomato paste. Folks, this is going to make a big pan of lasagna. Okay, a lot of food here. So we've got to start with getting this right here worked on. We're going to do the sauce first, and after that, everything else kind of plays out real simple. When I am making this dish, there's a couple of processes I need to do before I can start everything else. I'm going to crush my garlic, and I'm going to take my rosemary, put it into a mortar and pestle just like this, and we're going to just rub it down. Now the idea of this is, you know, rosemary a lot of times comes as a whole leaf item, which when you look at it just looks like a bunch of little twigs. All right, now when you get that, if you have that, it's not going to cook down well. I recommend just giving it a light rub like this. Once you've rubbed that out, you've extracted better flavor from it, and you don't have that woody, twiggy effect inside of your sauce, okay? So we're done there. Next thing, I want to crush these. Now, before we go much further here, let's mention, first of all, that when we're making something like this, there are several processes in making lasagna. Whether you're making fresh pasta or using a dried pasta and boiling it, you're running into the same problem. You're going to have an item that you're going to be doing work prior to making the dish, okay? Within all of this, several processes: making pasta, making sauce, making the cheese filling, and making the meat sauce. Now the meat sauce has to have some of this sauce in it to finish it up. So we start right here. I want to start here with this. We're going to do the pasta next, and that's to allow the pasta time to rest as we're preparing other things. After we're finished preparing all those things, we can then roll out our pasta, and at that point, assemble the lasagna. It's just that simple. Lasagna, not hard to do. This is a big pan recipe, ladies and gentlemen. You're going to need a big one. All right, now this one is a 14 by 9.5. And if you think your 13 by 9 glass is going to be the same, it won't. It'll overflow that one. All right, so be prepared for that. You might reduce some of your fillings just a little bit. I would say maybe go down to 2.5 pounds of cheese and 2.5 pounds of meat, and that should reduce this to the point where it's not such a problem if you're doing a 13 by 9. I would also cut back on that Parmesan and the mozzarella by about 1/3 each. That's all there is to it. This I'm going to set aside until we get that sauce made. It starts right here. When it comes to getting garlic flavor into a sauce, you can just mince the garlic, put it in there if you want, or you can do what I'm going to do. See how I'm crushing each one? Take those crushed cloves, put them right in your pan, just like this. Take the olive oil, put right on top. Okay? And remember, we're talking about 1/4 cup of olive oil here. It doesn't take a whole lot, but it does take enough to really kind of extract the oils from the garlic. Now I'm going to give some flame under this. We're going to bring it up in heat. And as this starts cooking the garlic, what I'm looking for is for that garlic to turn sort of a light caramel color, or light tan color, I should say. It'll be slightly cooked at that point, or slightly toasted, and that's when we get that good extracted flavor, that good garlicky flavor. And that's all I'm looking for. Once I'm finished with that, I'll pull the garlic out. I'll simply throw it away. The oil will contain all of the garlic flavor that I want, and at that point, well, we start making our sauce. I'll just simply mix in the tomato paste. The oil will combine immediately with the tomato paste. They'll just mix in naturally. Look at that garlic right there, okay? You see how we have a different color going on? That's what I'm looking for right there. And I'll tell you what, I have this explosion of garlic smell in the air, and it's absolutely fantastic, okay? So now, I just need to remove these. What I need is right there. It's that oil. It's in the oil. I need nothing else of that. I want to reduce that temperature to a low for the moment because I'm not going to need a high heat right now. My oil is plenty warm enough, and I just need to get this tomato paste down in there, to do so safely. So keep it low when putting it into that oil, and the idea is to keep from splattering the oil out of the pan, okay? Remember I mentioned that this would stir right into it, and it will. Okay, it's as simple as let's get this thinned out. Stir this in gently, taking my time, there's no rush here. And remember, we're going to need a couple of cups of water here, and some of that's going to get simmered out, so don't be afraid of this getting too thin. What I want to do when I make this sauce is to make a spaghetti sauce, basically. This is similar to that. It's just a marinara. I don't want it to be too thin or too thick to begin with. What I'm going to start with is about the same consistency that you get in your average spaghetti sauce. And by doing that, I'm going to have something that I can put in the meat and make a beautiful meat sauce with it, and without having to overcook it. And then I can thin what's remaining for the remaining dish. Now the reason I put extra water in there, we're going to be doing some homemade pasta, and that pasta needs to absorb water. Okay, so we're going to put extra water in the sauce to displace what the pasta absorbs as it's cooking in the oven. Just that simple. So we start here with our rosemary. Look at that. Isn't that pretty? I want just a little bit of salt, not much, maybe half a teaspoon. Okay, let's go ahead and put the oregano in there. Now my basil leaves are a little bit large, so I'm just going to give them a little squeeze and break some of them up. There we go. Add that down to that sauce, like so. Let's get that stirred in. Okay, this right here, I will now bring up my flame to medium. Bring this to a simmer. The minute it starts simmering, turn down the heat and just let it cook for about 20 to 30 minutes. Doesn't have to be an excessive cook time, all right? Remember, this gets cooked a second time in the oven. When you're making pasta, let's keep it simple, folks. The KISS method really works for this. Your pasta is 1 cup of flour, 2 eggs, all right? So let's dump a couple of eggs in there. a pinch of salt, which is usually 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon, and what some people call a dollop, or about a tablespoon of olive oil. All right, break the egg yolks, beat them. Now, okay, here's the thing. Here's why do we do the eggs in the middle of the flour and all of that? You've seen this done before. You see people do it on a breadboard like this, okay? And you might think, oh, well, make a hole in the middle of the flour on a breadboard to keep the egg from running away, right? In part, the whole idea really is to get a more even mix. When pasta was being invented, you know, they didn't have the modern advantages that we have now, and sometimes flour wasn't quite as, let's say, well sifted as you get in the bag these days. So you had lumps, and we didn't want lumps in the pasta. So it became tradition. They started making pasta that way. Now, if you'll notice, I'm using a simple fork, and while talking to you, all I've done was just mix that together into a single little lump. So right there, that right there is your first batch of pasta. It's not pretty, nothing fancy. It'll still need to be kneaded a little bit, not much. You'll see that in a minute. Right now, I've just got to get it off of the fork into some plastic and let it rest. I wrap it in plastic to allow it to rest so it's away from the air. That's important. So do that, mix all 3 batches, set those aside, and you're going to have your pasta ready to roll out 1 batch at a time, and that'll be your 3 layers of pasta. So we have sausage in the casing. Now over here I have my pasta resting, just as I mentioned to you. We mixed each batch up, and all 3 are sitting there wrapped up and resting. Now sometimes your sausage, if you'll notice, the casing will just pull right back from that filling. Other times it might fight you a little bit. So if you run into problems, I'm going to show you a trick. Now see here, I'm just pushing that sausage right out of the casing, right like that. Sometimes you get lucky and it goes that easy, okay? Other times though, well, it doesn't always pan out so easy, okay? I'll show you what I mean on a different way. So that right there, a neat way to remove the guts from a sausage. So what we want to do the other way is, if you run into a casing that's hard to remove, take your finger and push it right down through the middle of that sausage, just like that. And it'll start pushing out the other end. If it doesn't, break the casing open and simply peel that which is inside right off of this. Watch what I do here. See, I'm just peeling it off. Okay, there we have it. There's my casing and the meat from my sausage right down here in my bowl. Do that to each of your sausages. I have finished decasing my sausage. I'm heating this skillet. If you have a very lean meat, you might want to put down just a little bit of oil in this, a little olive oil or any kind of cooking oil, and then add your meat. Now this is a very fatty sausage right here. That's all of those sausages right there, folks. That's the insides, nice and pretty. Now as we cook this, I'm going to be breaking it up because I don't want the chunks of sausage to be too big. But a piece of sausage the diameter of, let's say, a nickel is a really good sized chunk, and it makes people feel that it's a meatier dish, even though there's no more meat in it. It's just the texture you get from the larger piece. As we're cooking this, also, I'm going to be adding in my onion, and I can put that in at any time, like right now, and carrot. So this all gets cooked together. Now here's the thing, once I have cooked my meat until it is fully cooked, then I can add in my red sauce, and then I'll add that red sauce in there, 2 cups of it. We're going to cook it down a little more after that, maybe 10 to 15 minutes worth. Then your meat filling will be finished. Talk about delicious. I'm really looking forward to this because I've had this dish before. I know what this dish tastes like. It's flat delicious. And so my mouth is already watering. Okay, this is a matter of cook it and be patient and just keep stirring and breaking apart the pieces like I'm doing here. Okay, easy enough. Well, now we can see this meat has cooked down just the way I was mentioning. We have some chunks in there about, like I said, about the size, maybe a nickel or a little larger on some of them, maybe like a 1/4 inch in diameter, or I mean the diameter of a quarter, I'm sorry, forgive me. So we have our meat ready to go here. I need to add in some sauce and then finish cooking this off to turn it into my meat sauce. So I'm going to put of the marinara that I made, and this is made to be about the same consistency as regular spaghetti sauce. I'm going to put in 2 cups. Now this ladle holds a 1/2 cup, so it makes this job pretty doggone easy, right? There we go. The rest of the marinara I'm going to thin a little bit and then use it for the top and bottom of the lasagna. Just keep this cooking. I'm going to reduce this for about another 10 minutes of cooking, and then my meat sauce is finished and ready to go in the lasagna. Ricotta cheese here, spinach, and a little bit of salt. That's all it takes to make a simple, basic cheese filling. Let me explain something. I've seen people put all manner of different items in these cheese fillings. Folks, the best cheese fillings I've ever seen and ever tasted have always been the most simple ones, okay? Simple, K-I-S-S. Keep it simple, stupid, all right? And it is a simple thing when you do it like this. You're not adding egg to it. You're not adding other ingredients. You're not adding extra cheeses or melting cheeses or anything like that. Just ricotta, just a little spinach. I'm using those salad greens right there. Just drop it right down into that. So do all of your spinach the same way. Get it into the ricotta and we'll get it mixed together. I have it all chopped up. About a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Doesn't take much, folks. All that does is just help to bring the flavor out in this cheese mixture. And you might think, oh, that's not enough to do it. Well, it is. It really is. It doesn't take a lot in this. Let me get rid of that. This is just my cheese filling. And I'll say this, once you've tried it, if you've never had your cheese filling done this way, once you've tried it like this, I think you're going to fall in love with it. It's so creamy and smooth. It's really, really pleasant to have a lasagna with such a filling in it. That right there. As you saw from earlier, mixing pasta doesn't take a whole lot of work. So what does take work? You may have heard, oh, pasta is so much work. Let me tell you something, it doesn't take work. It really doesn't. Now when you first start working your pasta that has rested, you'll know it's really soft and it doesn't have that firmness that pasta should have. Okay, and that's okay. We're about to give it that. You notice I put a little flour on there and I folded it, and I want to add a little more flour. And we'll fold, fold, fold. There we go. See, now suddenly it is feeling firm. And all I have done is folded in just a little bit of flour, and I have a nice pasta to work with. Okay, if you'll notice, that's all I'm doing is just fold it, press, fold, and press. You might get a little on you. It's not a big deal. Okay, and once you've done that several times and that pasta still is starting to feel firm, that is when you have it ready to roll out. Okay. One thing that you're going to notice about pasta right off, it has a tendency to shrink back up as you roll it out. You just got to be a little more stubborn than the pasta, that's all. And the other thing is pasta will stick to your roller quickly. Make sure there's plenty of flour available. So what I'm trying to do here, I'm trying to make a sheet of pasta that is the same size as the bottom of my pan. Well, knowing I can't get it exactly perfect, I'm not going to try. I'm just going to make it slightly bigger and then put the pan over the top and cut the excess off from around it. Okay, very, very basic. Plenty of flour, as you've seen me do. Right, now when we think we're kind of close, lay in a last layer of a little bit of flour there. And I do that just to keep things from sticking, because I want to have to fold this up as I roll out my other pieces. There we go. I'll just fold it like that and put it aside and do my next one. It is time for me to fill my pan. And I want to start by cutting my pasta the right size. Now, this is just a matter of if your pasta has shrunk up a little bit, not a problem, just kind of pull it back out to where he was. Put the pan on top of it, and that right there, ladies and gentlemen, that is your size guide. All you have to do is simply cut around the outside of the pan. There, 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 and right there. And there, it may not be perfect and pretty, but there I have a cutout that fits my pan perfectly. All right, so now all I have to do, get some sauce on the bottom of the pan and start layering this together. Before I put in my first layer of pasta, I'm going to put some sauce on the bottom of the pan. That sauce is going to cook that pasta, and it's going to be the bottom layer of flavor. And there we go. That was 4 of those ladles, which is 2 cups of that sauce. There we go. We can get our pasta down in there. Now the pasta, when I'm doing this, just gonna hold it gently, spread it out, and flop it down in there. And you may have to spread it a little bit. Don't worry if a little of the sauce comes over the sides or whatever. It's not going to affect anything, all right? It's still going to be a beautiful pasta dish when you're done with it. There we go. Now, I can layer on one of 2 things. I can put my cheese on here, or I can put my meat on here. Either is correct. Take your pick. I'm going to go cheese filling first because I like my cheese on bottom and my meat over the top, but whatever works for you, okay? When I'm layering cheese into the bottom of one of these, I simply take it in hand. I'm going to make a mess on my hands. I just spread it out as much as I can and lay it in there. From there, it just kind of spreads on its own, but you need to just kind of get a thin layer, about 3/4 of an inch to 1/2 inch or so deep. There we go. See how I do that? Just take large amounts and lay them out. It's time to go with another piece of pasta. Again, I want to make sure that it's going to fit in there nice. I'll spread that out a little. So as you've seen, if the pasta doesn't hit the right spot, just pick it up and pull it over, just like a blanket, all right? Meat filling. Beautiful, beautiful meat filling. Now this is the point, folks, where if I have a messy dish, and believe me, I've got a messy dish here, this is when I'm going to go ahead and do a little cleanup. So like around the edges here, these upper edges, where I've got cheese or sauce on that, I want to go ahead and pull that off. And the idea there is that's going to burn. It's just going to make an ugly spot on the pan. And I don't need that. I want my lasagna to come out looking beautiful and desirable for everyone. So, there we have it. Okay, now if you see, I got some wrinkles in my pasta. You got a wrinkle in your pasta? It doesn't matter. Okay, just put it on in there. It cooks the exact same way. All right, so there we have it. Next, sauce on top of this, and then we go on with cheese, and then we go in the oven. Once we have that, it's time to get our toppings on there. Oh yeah, look at this. Remember all that grated cheese that we had sitting aside? Well, guess what? Now it's time to break it out. That is mozzarella, and then we top the mozzarella with the Parmesan. Oh yeah, and it gives this beautiful melting action, and it'll help brown the top too. The Parmesan actually browns just slightly easier than the mozzarella does, and I think it has to do with moisture content, frankly. This needs to be baked covered for the first 20 minutes, okay? So take some aluminum foil and just do a light covering over it. Very good, just like that. This will be going into a 325-degree oven. It will be baking for about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes, depending on your altitude, the air pressure, and life in general. Okay, so there's, variances there. 325, 20 minutes with the cover on it. Take the cover off, finish cooking it off, and then when it's nice and brown on top, your lasagna is finished. And that usually takes about another 50 minutes to hour and 10 minutes to finish off browning it. There it is, folks. Let's get on with cooking this. One last warning, put a sheet pan on the rack underneath this so that if this boils over, it doesn't burn on the bottom of the oven, okay? Oven is at 325 degrees, preheated. Let's get this in there. Oh, that is heavy. There we go. The quantity of everything that we have used to make this lasagna today starts with that meat right here. Folks, I started with about 2.5 pounds of meat. Now, you can use anywhere from 2 to 2.5 pounds. I went a little heavy on it, okay? To that, we're going to be also using some tomato paste. This is 15 ounces, that's 18 ounces of tomato paste, which is 510 grams. And on that meat, you're looking at about 1,000 to 1,075 grams of meat, okay? Our basil over here, we've got a quarter of a cup of basil, and that comes up to about 4 grams. Right here, I've got some oregano. That's 1 gram of oregano, which is about 3 teaspoons, and a gram of rosemary, which is 1.5 to 2 teaspoons of rosemary. Our garlic, 1/2 ounce of garlic, which is roughly 15 grams, or you can look at it this way, 4 to 6 cloves of garlic. Hey, how's that for easy enough? Our salt right over here, 2 teaspoons of salt, which if you look at it, the other measurement, 8 to 10 milliliters of salt, okay? Go light on that. This dish doesn't take a lot. There's quite a bit of salt in some of the other ingredients. The olive oil, I'm going to be using about 1/4 cup of olive oil, 60 milliliters, 2 cups of wine right back here, and that is going to be about 450 milliliters of wine. On the wine right there, that wine I recommend using like a rosé. Don't go anything too heavy with it. This dish is already heavy. It doesn't need a heavy wine. Now, to that also, we're going to be using some flour to make our pasta, and that is 3 cups of flour to 6 eggs. And so you'll know that's 390 grams of flour, and of course 6 eggs is just 6 eggs, right? Okay, so 5 ounces of shredded onion, 150 grams, 3.5 ounces of shredded carrot, which is 100 grams, 3 pounds of ricotta cheese, which is 1,359 grams of ricotta cheese, and 453 grams of mozzarella, which is 1 pound. Over here on that Parmesan cheese, I've got 5 ounces of Parmesan. That's 140 grams, folks. Spinach, I'm using 4 ounces of spinach, 115 grams, and 2 cups of water. You don't see that out here. That's going to be used to thin down that sauce a little bit and make it just right. That is your recipe. You've seen how it was put together. Now, let's take a look at what it looks like. All right. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what we've been going for. Beautiful lasagna. At this point, you're going to let it cool down. Let it cool down. Don't spoon this up immediately. Don't jump right into it. It needs to kind of firm up a little bit, kind of congeal everything together. And at that point, it's ready to go. Remember, the sucker's hot. It's been in the oven for an hour plus at 325 degrees. So just give it time. When your lasagna has cooled down enough, go ahead at that point and get that sucker cut. Now, the other thing I'll mention is sometimes it's going to stick on those edges, so just go ahead and free it up before you try getting it out of that pan, okay? And there we have it. That, ladies and gentlemen, that'd be lasagna right there. Yeah. Well, this is what we've been working for all day today. It was making a beautiful, exciting, delicious lasagna. And look at that. You got that bottom layer of cheese, the upper layer of meat, and then there's pasta layers and cheese on top. Folks, it doesn't get much better than that. This is a fantastic dish, and I hope you enjoy yours. Well, folks, it's been a good day baking. Okay, let's take a look here. Oh, yeah. Like I said, when we were making this, the creaminess of the ricotta needs to really shine. And it does in this one. Also the Italian sausage and the way we do it with the vegetables, the sauce afterwards, cooking it. Oh, folks, that's fantastic. The flavors that are going on here are perfect. The pasta is cooked to a perfect al dente. It is wonderful, and you're going to enjoy this. This is the way lasagna really should be. If you want to go hardcore traditionalist, hey, this is it. This is lasagna, and it's a good one. Thank you for watching this. If you would, take a look right underneath this video. You're going to see that description box. There's some links there. Take a look at those. That is to my channel. You're going to get the rest of my recipes. There's a lot of stuff there. My website sells those written recipes. They're in PDF form. There's lots of really nice pictures, excellent instructions, and when you open one of them up, you'll see exactly what I mean. So take a look at those. I've got some fantastic recipes there. And this one will eventually be there also. Please be patient. It takes a while to get those done. Folks, thank you. Have a nice day. And enjoy your lasagna. Bye-bye. Yeah. More.